The facts are stubborn, and they do not care how President Biden feels. His son's closest business partner was in the White House so many times the list just got bigger. I'm Harris Faulkner, and you were in the Faulkner Focus. White House visitor logs reveal Eric Schwerin made at least 8 additional visits we didn't know about to the White House in 2016. Right now, that means Hunter Biden's business bestie was inside the People's House 27 times when Joe Biden was vice president and Barack Obama was president. And this part. Those visits included meetings with Joe Biden and, at times, his chief of staff. You know him. He's still in the White House, Steve Ricchetti, working today as a top advisor to the Biden White House. Press Secretary Jen Psaki claiming there's no problem here.
Does the president still maintain that he never spoke with his son about his business dealings? And given this reporting on Eric Schwerin, does he also say that he has never spoken to his son's business partners about his son's business dealings?
He maintains his same statements that he's made in the past. I would say, no, I don't have more information about visits from more than 10 years ago.
Well, now to the Justice Department's investigation of Hunter Biden. The Attorney General, Merrick Garland, refused to give an update when he was asked about it yesterday, and he also dismissed the need to appoint a special counsel. House Oversight Committee ranking member James Comer says this.
The evidence continues to mount that not only is Hunter Biden unethical and not only has Hunter Biden broken many laws, but also that Joe Biden could, in fact, be implicated in many of Hunter's bad transactions here. As the evidence continues to mount that the president is involved, I don't see any way other than having a special counsel.
Wisconsin Republican Senator Ron Johnson is in focus. And we will begin with Fox correspondent Mark Meredith at the White House. Mark.
Harris, good morning to you. It's unclear how long the federal investigation into the president's son is going to last, but as you mentioned, a lot of lawmakers up on the Hill want to know exactly where things stand. On Tuesday, Attorney General Merrick Garland, he was testifying before a Senate committee, and he was asked point blank about where things stand with this investigation into Hunter Biden. He punted on most of the questions, insisting the U.S. attorney in Delaware was handling the case and that the decisions were not being made with officials in Washington.
He is supervising the investigation, and I'm not at liberty to talk about internal Justice Department deliberations, but he is in charge of that investigation. There will not be interference of any political or improper kind.
Fox has told Grand jury proceedings tied to the Hunter Biden investigation have accelerated in recent weeks. Investigators looking into several years' worth of tax records and overseas business deals. In 2019, then candidate Biden even told Fox News he never discussed business with his son. But Fox News recently went back and looked at some of the White House visitor logs showing that in 2016, Hunter's longtime business partner had visited this campus multiple times, at least 8 times, including those right there on your screen. The meetings with various people, including the vice president's then chief of staff. On Tuesday, Fox asked the current administration for more details on these meetings, but we're told that there wasn't much to share, that these were public records dating back several years. And while the White House is, not usually able to talk a lot more about the investigation, punting to the Justice Department when these questions come up, we do expect that lawmakers, if Republicans were to take the House or the Senate, would dig a lot deeper on this because they believe that there was something fishy going on for so long, and they believe that the public has a right to know. Sorry about the lawnmower, Harris. Beautiful day, but they're getting some lawn work done here.
Well, it's finally a sign of spring, and we will take the win. Thank you. In focus now, Senator Ron Johnson, Republican of Wisconsin and member of the Foreign Relations and Homeland Security Committees. Great to have you today. Senator Johnson, how normal would it have been to have a family member's financial circle inside the White House 27 times? How normal would it have been for the president, then Obama, and Vice President Biden not to know about it?
I would say it wouldn't be normal at all. Certainly what all this new information is showing is that that President Biden and his minions continue to lie to the American public. He obviously knew about Hunter Biden's business deals. Now we're getting emails showing that Joe Biden was going to be paying for some of the legal fees to set up joint ventures in China. But it's not just Eric Schwerin. Devin Archer had a meeting with the vice president in the White House a day or two before President Biden, then Vice President Biden, went to Ukraine, was basically said he's the point man for the Obama administration on Ukraine. A few days after that, Devin Archer's on the Burisma board. A couple weeks after that, Hunter Biden's on the Burisma board. This is corruption at the highest level. And the media continues, except for Fox News and a few other conservative news outlets, continues to shrug and look the other way.
Well, we are not one outlet or the other. We are Fox, so we cover it all. Nobody's running from us. Real quick question. Is it fair, appropriate, is the timing right to begin to ask what President Obama knew at the time? These were his White House logs. And this wasn't somebody who breezed by. This was now 27 times. Is that fair game?
Well, first of all, he's not going to answer any questions, just like President Biden's not asking any questions, which is why we need the U.S. attorney to complete his investigation and make it all public. My concern, Harris, is that they'll end up doing some deal, some plea agreement, which part of that will be to seal the records, and then the American public will never know the extent of the sleazy conflict of interest of the Biden Inc. Family here. I'm highly concerned about that.
Yeah, the other name that popped up, this Ricchetti, who's in the White House now as a top advisor, someone else who will watch in the investigation too, because according to the Obama White House logs, he was in at least one of these meetings with this business partner, Eric Sharon. So we'll watch for that. Let's move to Elon Musk. And Senator, in a tweet, he called Twitter's censorship of the Hunter Biden laptop story incredibly inappropriate. And that's the man who's about to own Twitter. Your reaction?
Well, I completely agree with him. I thought that CNN pundit that was just, basically having a meltdown, that now Twitter just might be partisan. I mean, Twitter could dial up and dial down partisan information, and the American public may not even know about it until after the election. I mean, where has this guy, planet does he reside on? That's exactly what Twitter did when it comes to the Hunter Biden laptop, our report, a host of conservative censorship that Twitter's been engaged in. And, of course, the news media, the left loves it because Twitter's been so highly partisan. I think it's good news that Elon Musk is going to open it up and actually defend freedom of speech.
All right. We'll get to this now. A new study by a conservative group estimates the number of illegal immigrants living in the United States right now has surged by about 1 million in the first year of President Biden's presidency. It also found it cost $9.4 billion for taxpayers in 2020. They had to cover all those costs. Meanwhile, finally, maybe some strategy from the White House here. I'm interested in your take. DHS just released a 6-part plan to handle a predicted massive surge of illegal immigrants at the southern border. Everybody knows it's coming. When Title 42 restrictions eventually expire, Republican governors and their attorneys general in several border states did score a victory this week. So there's a temporary hold put on the Biden administration's ability to end Title 42 on May 23rd. But eventually it will. And under bipartisan pressure to come up with a plan, here's part of what the administration is offering. The use of a so-called expedited removal policy. Border Patrol agents say many illegals have already found a way around it by claiming they fear prosecution. The whole issue has sparked a lot of bipartisan concern. Let's watch.
The administration that we have currently has been doing nothing more than playing the blame game. They continually turn their back on our border communities and, by effect, the rest of American citizens that are dealing with the fallout from this broken policy. We have an invasion at our southwest border.
We know some things about immigration, and it spikes in the spring, particularly right around the time that the administration was proposing to get rid of Title 42. It just felt like we were walking into a problem.
Let's get a look. During a ride-along with Border Patrol, Fox cameras were rolling during a dangerous chase involving illegal immigrants, which ended in a crash. The driver was a 13-year-old Mexican national. A New York Post op-ed argues the Biden administration's border plan doesn't aim to prevent illegal crossings. Quote, a surge in crossings at the border is okay with Biden and his people. What they fear is how it will look to the public. It's a political problem, not a policy one. Senator Johnson, let's unpack that a little bit together. Let's start with this so-called Plan B for when Title 42 goes away. Your thoughts?
It won't work. Until you raise that credible fear standard up to the basic level of asylum, which is very tough. Very few people qualify for asylum. You have to be persecuted by your home country under a very short list of criteria, economic migration does not count. So the vast majority of people that are coming to this country illegally, and by the way, my calculation is about 1.25 million last year. That's a number larger than the population of 8 states. 7,000 people per day last month. A large caravan every day. This is out of control. And this is with Title 42 in place, where we turned back over 1 million people last year. When they end Title 42, that's going to signal to the world that we have completely open borders, which is what we pretty well have had except for the Title 42. So it's going to be a disaster. These are policies that simply will not work because it's not addressing the root cause. It will not be providing a consequence for people coming to this country illegally. As long as you can come, claim credible fear, and get dispersed around the country, encountered, processed, and dispersed. That's what this administration has gotten very good and efficient at. More will come.
Wow, just claim fear. What about the fear on the other side? What about the crime that comes in and the fentanyl? What about Americans' fear? Who listens to that? We've been talking to, just Americans who have that. What are you hearing from your constituents?
Well, people on the ground understand it when they listen to trusted news sources. I mean, people that tell them the truth. But as you're well aware, Harris, the vast majority of the mainstream media, they're not journalists. They're advocates for the far left, for the Democrat Party, which is one and the same. And they got Joe Biden elected, a guy who campaigned from his basement. Now they are covering up for him, whether it's the open border, whether it's 40-year high inflation, record high gas prices, the embarrassing and dangerous surrender in Afghanistan, which I think tempted Putin to act in Ukraine. The mainstream media is not covering this, so unfortunately, a lot of Americans get their news from big tech social media giants and legacy media, and they're just not aware of the disasters that is Democrat governance.
Well, it's hard to ignore all of the reporting that we're doing right now, the drones, and we have Democrats on daily in those border states who tell the same story. It is getting out there. Senator Johnson, thank you very much for being in focus today and giving us the information that you have.
Have a good day.
You too. Some critics call her the worst Veep ever. Excerpts from an upcoming book highlight big drama between Kamala Harris and President Biden, plus this.
I don't know his politics. I don't really care about his politics. The fact of the matter is he wants this to be as free as possible as a platform. And he's come under withering criticism from the media because the American media is corrupt.
The liberal cry fest over Elon Musk's Twitter takeover.
Twitter has been a dark, dark place. I hope it doesn't get any darker.
I think he's a twit, so I think that, that's kind of a nice parallel.
When a billionaire amasses this much power, he plays by a different set of rules than everyone else. They can buy whatever toys, whatever influence, whatever power they want. And that's a real problem in this country.
Democrats and liberals still throwing a tantrum. They're pitching all their toys out the crib over this. Elon Musk has bought Twitter. Deal's not quite done, but it's coming. And many in the media, as well as Twitter employees, are also panicking over the future of the platform, claiming Elon Musk's purchase will undermine democracy. The Tesla CEO fired back at those critics with this tweet. The extreme antibody reaction from those who fear free speech says it all. By free speech, I simply mean that which matches the law. I am against censorship that goes far beyond the law. And a Wall Street Journal op-ed pokes the far left with the headline, "More hilarious wailing at Elon Musk." Quote, as long as the usual Silicon Valley overlords controlled all of social media, progressives didn't mind. But Elon Musk buys Twitter and suddenly freer speech is a national crisis. Tammy Bruce, Fox News contributor, host of Get Tammy Bruce on Fox Nation. There are such a short list of things that I've ever seen you get excited about like this. What is the meaning of this to you?
It's really the moonshot of freedom of expression. It is perhaps the most significant action on public communication, perhaps in the last 50 to 75 years, because social media would remain a controlling factor in how we converse. And we saw, especially during the 2020 election, the Hunter Biden laptop dynamic, what the commitment was, how easily information could be stopped and withdrawn, as Twitter acted as an assignment desk for all other media. Even though the majority of Americans are not on Twitter, it affected the culture outside of those bounds about what you saw, what you didn't see, and you can't prove a negative, so Americans didn't necessarily know what they weren't seeing. So this changes that dynamic. It comes back to an American spirit kind of feeling, as opposed to a totalitarian mid-20th century feeling. And that's what we're able to do in the 21st century, is Americans pulling things back to what has made this country the greatest nation on the earth.
That is very uplifting.
It's a good time to be a happy warrior.
But, I mean, think about how many negative dumpster fire comments there are about using Twitter and how the bullying and the awful nature of it has been. Very few times in Twitter's history that I can remember where anybody had anything positive to say about it. And maybe that's even having an effect on the stock price as much as Elon Musk buying it.
Optimism.
I mean, it is the change in value that people see in their lives. Kayleigh McEnany and I were talking yesterday that we've noticed how many people have come back to Twitter. Like it's been overnight, the usage has popped.
On Tuesday, and I look at a separate analytics, I normally have an average of about 300 new followers a day, 8,000 new people. Now, we don't know yet. We don't know, and this is what we hope to see, about algorithms. If followers were being throttled, if they were hidden.
Shadow banned.
Shadow banned. If people followed you and you didn't know. We don't know yet.
We don't
expect to find out. But it's an exciting time because of the power of social media, even in fundraising for heroes, sending out better stories.
I would get stickered for some of the comments that I made about the Fraternal Order of Police when defund was going on. I'm a journalist. I'm quoting other people. Anyway, we'll move on. This chart shows employee donations to midterm candidates at some of the country's most influential Twitter. It shows that in 2018, the midterms, 98.7% of donations from employees went to Democratic candidates or the party. In 2020, that number was virtually the same. So look at that. The liberal media also went after Elon Musk's Twitter buyout. We'll get to that in a second. What do you make of this ad buying, this donation block?
Well, you have a company's culture. Either the company invites and welcomes a variety of opinions, as this company does, that you have people who have different kinds of points of view on a variety of issues. And then that messaging attracts other people to work for a company. So this is why you see this kind of singular point of view. It's literally groupthink. And it moves you in a direction then that you just simply can't pull it back from. And of course, when you're in the work of communicating, of delivering news, of being a town hall, that of course will destroy your platform. What this nation is and why we're strong is because of the variety of opinions. The staff there then it becomes like this vicious circle that then can't be reined back in. And all that people seem panicked about is that very fact. They believe they have sole possession of the truth. All these other things are just, irritations, and that destroys the nature of what the country is for and, of course, the quality of people's lives.
So having given a few Town Hall Americas,
yes, you have.
as I like to talk about them, I never can even imagine keeping some people at the back door saying you're not allowed in because you want to ask a question about such and such. But that's effectively what you're saying. And he wants to turn this into that town hall that has enough seats for everybody and some extra standing room.
And the left is saying this is going to become like, some kind of massive barroom brawl. No, it's not. This is what it's going to be. It's going to be an actual ability to not, their worry is that they can't stop the speech. They're not worried about that.
That's the point I was going to make. So now if you're on the left or if you're just oppositional to what you see, right, you'll actually have to posture a debate. You'll have to have reasons for why you believe what you believe and not be a faceless egg taking punches at people in the dark. Like it's going to change the game, hopefully, to be more like a real debate. Real quickly. And I mentioned ad buying. Sometimes when you have enough people who think the same and then they begin through algorithms to make certain items popular, it can look like an ad. Because they can manipulate the words in the media that are there. Let me get to this. The liberal media is going after Elon Musk's Twitter buyout and conservatives for supporting it. MSNBC's Nicole Wallace with this.
What the right has already seized is this ground that they're on the side of free speech. They're really not. They're for the political version of yelling fire in a movie theater.
Tammy.
Really, this is classic projection. You've seen it everywhere. They know what they've been doing. They presume and imagine. Now, Elon Musk is a libertarian. He's not really an ideological partisan. So we don't have that. That's not going to happen. But the left knows, Nicole Wallace knows the role that Twitter played, and she's now afraid that that will switch on to the right side, that that conservatives will do that very same thing. But we tend not to. Certainly Elon Musk will not. But what, again, they're worried about is the fact that the reality, the truth of information, the truth about stories, the nature of what's going on will finally come to light. But ultimately, it's a projection of an expectation, and that Elon Musk noted it, as you showed his tweet, that their reaction to this idea, it proves effectively the importance of what he has done.
Tammy Bruce, great to have you in focus.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you. After Russia's latest threat, Ukraine's President Zelensky says Russian President Putin should not have control of his country's nuclear weapons. And now Russia has cut off natural gas to 2 European nations, a huge escalation in this war. We are first on the ground in Kyiv, and we'll get into those other parts of the story as well. The U.S. Supreme Court is taking up a case that could mean everything for freedom of religion. A high school coach fired for praying on the field. That coach, Joe Kennedy, and his attorney are in focus next. Tammy Bruce is clapping for you. Stay close. Condemned Russia's latest nuclear threat 36 years to the day after the Chernobyl meltdown. He wants global control of Putin's nuclear weapons.
I believe that after everything that the Russian troops did in the Chernobyl zone and at the Zaporizhia nuclear plant, no one in the world can feel safe knowing how many nuclear sites, nuclear weapons and relevant technologies Russia has.
And in a huge escalation of hostilities against the West, Moscow has cut off natural gas supplies to 2 nations. Griff Jenkins is live in Ukraine's capital, Kyiv. Griff.
Hey, Harris, there's a false sense of security here in Kyiv, in the capital, because the Russians have long since withdrawn and there's been a lull in strikes here. We've even begun to see a little bit of normalcy returning to the capital with some traffic in the streets. But amidst that nuclear talk and escalating threats, the brother of Kyiv's mayor, Vladimir Klitschko, says you cannot rule the danger of Putin striking again. Watch.
We cannot underestimate the enemy, because this is the enemy of the free world. This is evil, and it's basically the fight between the good and evil. And this evil could show different sides. Chemical attacks, nuclear attacks, and anything else. We must count with anything and prepare for anything that possibly can come from Russian side.
This as Russia continues to pound targets in the east, particularly in Kharkiv, Ukraine's second largest city, and more strikes in Mariupol. Harris?
Griff Jenkins, thank you. We have a bit of breaking news now. President Joe Biden is speaking at the funeral of America's first female Secretary of State, Madeleine Albright. Let's watch.
For themselves and your grandmother, as a Madam Ambassador and as the first female Secretary of State in American history, made sure those nations and those people knew exactly where the United States of America stood and what we stood for. You know, and all through it, her beloved sister Kathy and her brother John can attest, she never forgot where she came from or who she was. President Obama, President Secretary Clinton, Vice President Al Gore, members of Congress, cabinet members, past honor, a truly proud American who made all of us prouder to be Americans. I also want to welcome the distinguished guests and dignitaries who've traveled from around the world to celebrate a daughter of the Czech Republic who knew what it meant to endure war and flee persecution. With her friend Václav Havel, when he died, I remember when Madeleine eulogized him, she used these words, and I quote, He cast light into places of deepest darkness and reminded us constantly of our obligations to one another. These words apply equally to Madeleine. When I got word that Madeleine had passed, I was in midair on my way to Europe to meet with our NATO allies in Brussels to help try to continue to keep the strong alliances together. Our organization and the international response to Russia's brutal and unjustifiable war against Ukraine. It was not lost on me that Madeleine was a big part of the reason NATO was still strong and galvanized as it is today. And a few days later, I traveled to Poland and spoke about all that was at stake in our world and for democracy and freedom, which is under assault from forces of autocracy and oppression. Many are tired. I think we're at another inflection point in world history where there is literally a severe confrontation between autocrats and democratic nations. President Clinton, Bill, it was not lost on me that you spoke at the same Warsaw Castle that I was about to speak at 25 years earlier. In my case, it was evening. The interior of the castle, that beautiful courtyard, holds about 500-600 people. And mostly Poles and Ukrainians were present when I spoke. And I'm sure many in the audience spoke English, though likely not their first language. But when I mentioned the name, they were respectful of what I was saying. But when I mentioned the name of Madeleine Albright,